welcome to your first episode of Unbiased Truth with your host, Branson Harper. And I'm just going to give a little quick rundown back on myself. I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist with a bachelor's degree with journalism, communications, and media studies from San Diego State University. And I just started this podcast as a way to start bridging the divide, hopefully, between everybody, and present an unbiased truth as best, in my opinion, as possible from both sides, from the far right and especially the far left, where we could hopefully try to see the stuff factually as the way it is. And with the first issue I'll be talking about on this channel will be how SNAP and EBT benefits will run out by the end of November, or by the beginning of November, Halloween Day to be exact. And I believe, like a lot of things in this country, that this is a very complicated issue to talk about, but there's facts, honestly, that we need to set aside first, including that, you know, the the USA today is not in the financial state and the economic condition that it was many years ago to support all these social programs throughout the country. You know, and at the same time, a lot of people are dependent on these programs that need assistance. And the problem is, what can we find out that is the truth? Because a lot of people on the right will say, it's a bunch of waste. All this money, taxpayers' money, is going to help people that are just cheating the system. They're like leeches on the system. And why I partially agree on that, the other side of the coin is that a lot of people need help, because the rising cost of living nowadays and everything's so expensive in modern American society that the affordability is just very hard to get by. And so, a few $100 a month, helping with food and groceries can help people get by. My honest opinion is that, yes, both sides are true to a certain extent, but that, yeah, there's a lot of leeches and parasites in the system that completely abuse it, as we've all seen a lot of clips on YouTube and TikTok about, these people like welfare queens. They're bragging about how much they get out of free money and they don't even work a single job. They'll have 4 or 5 kids and they're like getting hundreds, like, $1,000 SNAP EBT assistance a month. And they're just like, oh, I deserve this. I deserve this. You don't deserve anything. You should be grateful that you got free food and money at all, to be honest. But, the other side is that people need help. And I've heard stories about a single dad having to raise 2 girls, and he works 2 full-time jobs. And it's like hard for him to get by nowadays in the condition that the country is in. And I'm like, if you're like helping the system, yeah, you should get some assistance, honestly. So I think the solution to this isn't just cutting everyone out, deleting the system altogether, letting it run dry. I think the solution is to find a way that we can both help people but cut out the excess fat in the system, just so to say. Like this is a statistic from the USDA, is that this blows my mind, honestly, that there's 12 billion a year annually, at least, that is related to EBT and SNAP food fraud. 12 billion. I don't know if you can imagine that at all, but that's an enormous amount. 12 billion. So like in today's day and age, that we're wasting that much money on that, which is, really mind-blowing, because we have a huge deficit and budget problem, which that's really not helping. Now it starts to make sense with all people leeching off the system that we're at 12 billion. Because I know a lot of able-bodied people that don't pay a dime. And they're like, oh, I deserve this, and they don't. But at the same time, like, I feel bad for a lot of people, especially children that are in these homes, and they make up 39% of that, where they benefit from that. And I don't want all these kids to just suffer and be like, you just have to make your own. 14 million people use SNAP. 14 million kids, I mean to say, and that 40 million people use SNAP. 40 million. And 1.5 of that are non-citizens. So those non-citizens are using that, whether asylum seekers, refugees, but regardless, they probably shouldn't even be using it to begin with. Who knows how many people that are using it that aren't even registered because they live in a household where they can get it. But I feel bad for all these kids that are dependent on it and they're just beholden to their parents' mistakes. Like, we shouldn't be able to fund all these welfare queens, people that are reliant on the system, forever. Like, there should be a way to gradually get out of that, to be like, you know what, here, we'll help you for a couple months or something until you can find a job or a better living situation. My solution would be to maybe give them a month or two to find at least one job, maybe work 20 hours a week at least, and they'll still get some form of EBT or SNAP benefits. But other than that, I don't think we should totally cut people off, but we really need to trim the fat off the system big time. Because all this social welfare program started in the 60s, late 60s, under Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society Act, where that was his envisionment of helping people out and bringing equity and equality. And while I do slightly agree with that, at the same time, we're not in the condition at all where we were 60 years ago, 50 years ago at all. And part of it is because we've become a welfare state, and we need to, do a lot of cuts. And you hope people don't get cut in the way, but some people need to get cut and grow a pair and put on the big daddy pants on and start doing their part in society, because otherwise we're in deep trouble. Let me know your thoughts out in the comments. Thank you.